Memphis, late 70s. Elvis Presley was used to crowds, 2 stages, 2 spotlights. But on this night, the king was stuck in a fluorescent lit airport lounge. No stage, no band, just weary travelers, and one exhausted ticket clerk wiping her eyes, not from the delay, but from what Elvis was about to do. If you think you've heard every Elvis story, stay with me. This one happened far from the Vegas lights, and it proves his greatest moments didn't need a stage. The old split flat board at Memphis International clattered, one letter at a time, until the word delayed locked into place beside the Nashville flight number. A groan rolled through the waiting area. Men in suits muttered about meetings. A mother jiggled a crying toddler on her hip. The smell of burnt coffee drifted from the snack counter, mixing with the sharp tang of floor polish. And then the sliding glass doors parted. A tall man stepped in, wearing dark aviator sunglasses despite the dim light. His white-collared jacket caught the reflection of the overhead fluorescence. 2 aides walked just behind him. But there was no grand entrance, just a quiet scan of the room. A few passengers recognized him instantly. Others froze mid-step, eyes narrowing as if to confirm. One teenager actually dropped his magazine to the floor. The man took off his glasses. It was Elvis Presley. He moved toward the counter with an easy stride. The ticket clerk, a young woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, looked up and tried to hide her surprise. "Elvis, sir, we've been grounded," she stammered. "Guess we're all stuck here, honey," he said, his voice low and warm. A quick smile flickered as he set his small overnight bag on the floor. Some say there was an unspoken shift in the air right then, a quiet curiosity settling over gate 12. Elvis stepped aside to let another passenger check in, and that's when he noticed him. A boy, maybe 7 or 8, standing beside his mother. In his hands, a cardboard guitar, the kind cut from a packing box, marker lines for strings. He was staring, not in the giddy way fans did, but like someone seeing a figure from a dream suddenly walk into real life. Every time the boy's eyes met Elvis's, he looked down quickly, but then he'd peek again. Elvis tilted his head, studying him. Then he began walking toward the child. The mother noticed and stiffened, almost protective, her hand on the boy's shoulder. When Elvis stopped just a few feet away, the lounge seemed too quiet, as if even the humming vending machine had taken a pause. He leaned slightly, just enough to meet the boy's eyes over the edge of the cardboard guitar, and he smiled, to be continued. Elvis bent his knees so he was eye level with the boy. "Your guitar?" he asked, nodding toward the cardboard cutout. The boy's mouth twitched in something halfway between a smile and a grimace. He nodded. "Looks like it's seen some miles," Elvis said softly, touching one of the marker-drawn strings with his fingertip. "Mind if I give it a go?" The boy's eyes widened. Elvis cradled the cardboard like it was a Gibson, strummed a playful chord, nothing but the flat slap of paper. He chuckled, shaking his head as though the instrument had betrayed him. "That's all right," he said, pretending to tune it. "We can make music out of anything." The mother, still tense, managed a small laugh. Across the room, an airline attendant peeked over the counter. 2 businessmen abandoned their newspapers. A little girl tugged at her father's sleeve, pointing toward the corner where Elvis crouched. The lounge noise shifted, less chatter, more hushed curiosity. The vending machine hummed in the background, punctuated by the occasional metallic thunk of someone's soda spiraling down its chute. Elvis straightened, scanning the lounge like he was sizing up a crowd. Then he looked at the ticket clerk. "You'll have an upright piano hiding back there somewhere." She shook her head, but before she could answer, a baggage handler in grease-smudged overalls called out from the doorway, "We got an old guitar in Lost and Found. Been there months. Think we can borrow it?" Elvis asked. 5 minutes. Later, the handler returned with a sun-faded acoustic. A few strings were slack, the tuning pegs stiff. Elvis ran his hand along the neck, testing the weight. He adjusted the strap and turned the pegs until the guitar hummed in something close to pitch dot. Then he took a slow step toward the center of the lounge. A couple of travelers shifted in their seats to see better. One man in a military jacket leaned forward, elbows on knees. The boy clutched his cardboard guitar, eyes locked on the real one in Elvis's hands. Elvis strummed once, low and soft, the chord rippling through the tiled space. He tapped the body of the guitar with his palm, feeling the rhythm. Then, almost under his breath, he began, "Love me tender, love me sweet." The words carried in a way that didn't need amplification. Warm, steady, each syllable curling in the air, just long enough to reach the far wall. The ticket clerk froze with a stack of boarding passes in her hand. The janitor leaned on his mop. Watching, passengers began turning their chairs toward him, some setting down their coffee cups mid-sip. The vending machine kept humming, but now it seemed like part of the arrangement, a low mechanical harmony under the melody. Elvis sang the first verse without looking at anyone, eyes half closed. On the second, he glanced toward the boy and gave a barely there nod, as if inviting him into the song without a word. The boy mouthed along with the lyrics, almost inaudible, but Elvis caught it by the chorus. There was a stillness in the lounge, a kind of collective holding of breath. Even the rolling suitcase wheels from a late passenger seemed to slow, as the final chord of the verse faded. A shadow moved at the edge of the crowd. A uniformed airport security officer stepped forward, his voice cutting into the quiet. "Sir, we can't allow," he stopped mid-sentence, finally seeing who was holding the guitar. "To be continued." The officer's voice caught in his throat. Elvis gave a slow grin. "Mind if I finish this one?" The officer hesitated, glancing toward the ticket counter as if expecting a supervisor to appear. Instead, the clerk simply shrugged, her eyes saying, "Are you really going to stop him?" The officer stepped back. Elvis nodded in thanks and turned his attention back to the guitar. With a gentle thumping, he eased back into the melody, his voice rich but unforced. The sound seemed to seep into every corner of Gate 12, the metallic clink of the departure board quieted. The distant rumble of baggage carts dulled to a backdrop hum. A man in an army green jacket rested his chin on his knuckles, listening. A flight attendant set down the stack of drink cups she'd been arranging and leaned against the doorway, halfway. Through the second verse, Elvis's eyes found the ticket clerk. "Come on now," he said, motioning her forward with 2 fingers. Her cheeks flushed. She shook her head. He smiled wider. "You know this one." After a beat, she stepped from behind the counter, voice shaky as she joined him for a single line. The crowd clapped softly at her courage. As the chorus wound down, something unexpected happened. From the row of seats near the window, a man in a rumpled business suit reached into his briefcase and pulled out a harmonica. Without asking, he lifted it to his lips and played a few soft notes, weaving them between Elvis's chords. Elvis glanced his way, eyebrows lifting in approval. "That's it, partner," he said mid-song, never missing a beat. The music filled the lounge, a blend of voice, guitar, and harmonica that didn't belong in an airport, but somehow fit perfectly in this moment. The boy with the cardboard guitar was sitting forward now, legs swinging under his chair. Mouthing every word, Alt Elvis caught the movement from the corner of his eye. He stopped strumming. The sudden silence drew every gaze to him. He set the guitar against his hip and looked directly at the boy. "Think you can help me finish this?" The boy blinked, unsure if the question was real. Elvis extended his hand. Gasps rippled through the lounge as the boy stood, cardboard guitar pressed to his chest. He took slow, careful steps toward the man everyone was watching. Elvis crouched slightly, holding out the microphone from the portable PA cart someone had wheeled. "Over, let's make you part of the band," he said. The boy looked at his mother. She gave the smallest of nods. Elvis smiled. "All right then." From the top. "To be continued." Elvis adjusted the mic stand, lowering it until the head was just level with the boy's chin. "There we go," he said softly, like he was tuning. The moment itself, the boy clutched his cardboard guitar in both hands. His knuckles were white. "Don't worry about playing it perfect," Elvis told him. "Just play it proud." The crowd chuckled gently at the words, the kind of laugh that carried warmth instead of humor. An off-duty pilot, still in uniform but with his cap tucked under his arm, knelt down near the front row of seats. He clicked the shutter on a Polaroid camera, the first of several snaps that would freeze this moment forever. Elvis gave the boy a count-off, tapping his boot heel against the tile. 1, 2. The boy strummed his cardboard strings in time with the real guitar. The sound was pure paper, but Elvis's voice wrapped around it, turning it into something whole. Passengers began clapping softly on the beat. A woman with a neck pillow swayed in her seat. The ticket clerk stood just to the side, eyes bright. Midway through the song, Elvis shifted the guitar's weight to one shoulder. He reached into the pocket of his white jacket and pulled out a scarf, ivory with thin blue piping. Without breaking the rhythm, he draped it around the boy's shoulders. The boy stopped strumming for a second, startled. Elvis nodded toward the scarf. "That's yours now," he said between lines. "Every band member gets one." The crowd's applause swelled. The boy started strumming again, this time louder, even though the sound didn't change. His grin widened until it nearly eclipsed his shyness. When the chorus hit, Elvis leaned down, singing directly into the boy's mic. Their voices one, seasoned and smooth, one small and unpolished, blended into something neither could have done alone. An older man in a grey fedora wiped at his eyes. Elvis brought the song down to a near whisper for the final lines, letting the claps fade into silence. The last note lingered in the air like it was reluctant to leave. The passengers erupted into cheers, some standing. Elvis bent toward the boy again. This time, he didn't speak into the mic. He leaned close enough that only the boy and maybe his mother could hear. "You ever been to Graceland?" he asked. The boy shook his head quickly. Elvis smiled. "We'll have to fix that." The mother, still seated, pressed a hand to her mouth. Her eyes shimmered. Passengers nearby exchanged curious glances. They hadn't heard the exact words, but they could tell from her reaction that something had just been set in motion. The boy looked from Elvis to his mother, then back again, unsure if he'd just been invited somewhere he'd only ever seen on postcards. Elvis straightened, handed the boy the guitar pick he'd been using, and gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder. The clapping continued as Elvis returned the borrowed guitar to the lost and found case. The mother whispered something in her son's ear. He clutched the scarf with one hand, the cardboard guitar with the other, as if afraid either might vanish if he let go. At the ticket counter, the clerk announced over the PA, "Attention. Passengers on Flight 218 to Nashville will begin boarding shortly." Elvis glanced at the boy one last time, and then he did something that made the mother's eyes go wide. To be continued. The boarding call echoed through the lounge, voices rising as passengers gathered their bags. Wheels rattled across the tile. Most assumed Elvis would disappear now, slip through the jetway, maybe nod a goodbye on the way. But instead, he walked straight to the boy and his mother. He spoke low, his back to the crowd. The mother's expression shifted from polite surprise to disbelief, to a quiet, overwhelmed smile. From his jacket pocket, Elvis pulled a small, folded piece of paper. He knelt so the boy could take it directly from his hand. The boy unfolded it slowly. On the paper, written in looping script, "Bring the whole family to Graceland this Sunday. My treat, E." Passengers close enough to see it gasped. One woman put a hand over her heart. The boy looked up at Elvis, unable to form a word. "You keep playing," Elvis said, tapping the cardboard guitar gently. "We'll get you something with real strings." The mother mouthed thank you as her eyes filled. Over the PA, the final boarding call rang out. The aides gestured toward the gate, but Elvis didn't rush. He stood, gave the boy's hair a light tousle, and turned toward the JETWAY. As he reached the door, the boy's voice piped up, small but clear. "Thank you, Mr. Presley." Elvis stopped. Without turning fully, he raised one hand in a wave. Then he was gone. Witnesses say, the lounge buzzed with chatter long after the plane left the gate. People compared Polaroids. The harmonica player replayed the moment in words to anyone who'd listen. But the story didn't end there. 1 week later, according to neighbors and relatives, the boy arrived at Graceland with his mother, father, and little sister. They toured the mansion, took photos by the famous gates, and ate lunch in the kitchen with staff who treated them like family. Before they left, Elvis himself came down from upstairs, carrying a case. Inside was a sunburst finish guitar, small enough for the boy to hold comfortably, but real in every sense. Taped to the headstock was a note in the same looping script, "Play it proud." The boy hugged it like he'd never let go. His mother kept that guitar in the family until the day of his wedding. Back at the airport, staff later said the lounge felt different for weeks. Some swore you could still hear faint guitar chords in the quiet moments between flights. To be continued. Years later, the ticket clerk still kept a single Polaroid on her living room shelf. It showed Elvis kneeling beside a boy with a cardboard guitar, both of them singing into a shared microphone. The edges were worn soft from being handled so many times. She'd tell visitors that was the night an airport turned into a concert hall. For Elvis, fame had meant full arenas, television specials, walls of gold records. But according to those who knew him best, the real magic was in moments like this, when there was no stage, no spotlight, just people in need of a little joy. Several witnesses would recall the way he seemed unhurried that night. He could have stayed in his seat, signing an autograph or two. Instead, he walked into the middle of a cramped lounge and gave strangers something they never forgot, local. Memphis papers ran small blurbs about the impromptu performance, mentioning the boy with the homemade guitar and the harmonica player in a rumpled suit. There were no professional photos, no TV coverage, just personal snapshots and word of mouth. That's partly why the story stayed special. It wasn't crafted for headlines. It was given freely to a handful of people who happened to be in the right place at the right time. According to family friends, the boy grew up to play guitar in his church band. He never became famous, but music remained a constant in his life. At his wedding, the same Graceland guitar was propped on a stand beside the altar, scarf draped over the neck. For the airport staff, that night became a touchstone, the shift they measured all others against. Even grounded in an airport, one employee said years later, he gave people something to take off with. The Polaroids faded, the lost guitar disappeared, and the old split-flap board was replaced by digital screens. But for the few dozen who were there, the memory stayed sharp. It was proof that kindness doesn't need a perfect setting, that sometimes the smallest stage can hold the biggest performance, and that one person, willing to notice, can change the tone of a whole room. You don't need fame or a spotlight to leave someone with a story they'll carry for the rest of their life. If this moved you, share it with someone who believes kindness can turn any place into a stage. What's the most unforgettable act of kindness you've ever witnessed?